Simon Hypixel just offered to buy back Hytale. So in some interesting developments from X, and specifically Simon Hytale's Twitter, it seems like Hytale has a decent chance at being revived. Now, not like, oh my god, Hytale's definitely going to launch, but it's a possibility. So we started with this tweet from Hugo. He's a prominent Hytale community member, works for Nox Crew, which is the team behind MCC, and is, I think, the top Spanish YouTuber in the space. And he said, I think there is a very real opportunity here to look into buying back the IP, if it's not crazy expensive, and getting a couple of the OG developers back to get the real Hytale released. 30 people, just like in the good old days. And then Simon responded, yeah, well, it would be a massive undertaking, not sure I want to take that responsibility, would need to open source some parts like tools, etc. And anything that would be spent buying on the IP would drain the funding of the game, so it's a bit difficult to deal with. So, started out not super enthusiastic about the idea. Then Tubbo, big Minecraft streamer, tipped a pizza guy like $100 one time, says, make a Kickstarter right now. And Simon says, Tubbo, don't bully me into buying it. I'm living a good, peaceful life. Kind of playing around, and really non-committal so far. And then Tubbo said, all I'm saying is that this community is very passionate about this project. And Simon says, I get it 100%. Look, I'm even down to put 25 million USD by myself to finish Hytale. That's how much I believe in it. No Kickstarter, just raw passion, high pressure, and high risk taking. Reduced scope, legacy engine, PC only first, open source, some parts, small team, cut unfinished features to accelerate towards beta, get players in ASAP to support development. I even already have a dozen Hytale legacy engine veterans working for me. I believe this is referring to his independent game studio, Arcanite Games. Interestingly, but probably unrelated, this page for his game studio, Arcanite Games, was up the day Hytale's cancellation was announced, and has since gone to under construction. Stay tuned for updates soon. So, whether or not this is related to Hytale is impossible to say. I doubt it is, because this happened before Simon said all these things on Twitter, but only time will tell, and I'll keep you updated on that as well. That's what I would do, but I've not reached out. I'm just thinking about it now because of the bullying, haha. This would be a massive challenge, and impact all aspects of my life, so I would probably need to consult with my family first. And just to clarify, Simon earlier said that Riot did not in fact reach out to him about acquiring Hypixel Studios, so this would kind of be a first engagement for this possibility. It's not like this ship has already been tested and failed to sail. Then Simon said, to clarify, it would require a lot less money to get something that could be released in very early access with temporarily removed features. We could just get the community involved ASAP in modding / bug report / feature requests / crowdfunding, and find ways to use shared source and open source with cash bounties to speed up production and keep the team relatively small. So that seems like an interesting development tactic, but whatever, if it gets Hytale, it gets Hytale, and that's pretty exciting. Then he says, guys, please, this is important, keep your expectations extremely low, because usually when the large companies shut down a project like this, the chances of revival are next to impossible. Yes, I made the decision. I will give my best to save Hytale. Even if it's a 1% chance, it's the least I can do to the same community that gave me the opportunity to be where I am today. I will reach out, however, remember, it will take a while. Give it some time. It will take months to get answers and months to get done. I will share as much as possible as I go through the process. And notably, about 16 hours ago, mine posted, hey, he sold it to say, sold my Hypixel Studios and Hytale to Riot Games, and then about 8 hours ago, he changed it back to remove the word my, so, yeah, nobody really knows what that means, but this is very exciting news, because there is an outside possibility of Hytale being saved. Riot put about 150 million USD into this project, and 25 million USD also obviously doesn't offset that loss, but it would be more than zero they would get from outright cancelling their project. So, if they do sell to Simon, I do believe Simon will do his very best to get it up and running, albeit, like he said, PC only released, very early access, legacy engine, yabba dabba doo, won't be the new engine game we were expecting, probably also would have a ton of different devs from what it originally had. I would guess Simon would move this to be made by Arcanite Studios rather than Hypixel Studios, because most of the devs from that have already been laid off and likely do not want to return to the studio, and Simon doesn't really have the budget to rehire all of them. And then even past that, before all of this, Simon was talking, if we go back to the blog post, this is something, before everybody's like, oh, co-parter, this is something that was posted by Minecraft YouTuber Waddles. If you don't know who Waddles is, he makes some YouTube series called The Survival Guide. I was a huge fan of him for a while. He was my favorite YouTuber for a bit. He pointed out, and keep in mind, he was not very up to date on Hytale. He didn't even know that there was a blog. He pointed out that there was this statement at the end of the blog post: even though we won't be the ones to bring this game into the world, we still believe in what it stood for and the incredible potential of this genre. So, the second half doesn't really matter, but the first half, even though we won't be the ones to bring this game into the world, kind of implies that Riot or somebody else may be moving the project to another development studio, maybe one that is more effective at getting work done. So this also leaves the option either Simon Hypixel can buy it, or Riot could repurpose the IP, send it off to a different development studio, and either use it in their other games, make some random game with it that uses like Quebecs and all the Hytale IP, but not necessarily a voxel, or probably a voxel game, but like could be like a Minecraft Dungeons type of thing. Or they could just entirely make Hytale, or maybe Hytale but like without the modding tools, or Hytale without the minigame servers, or whatever. It also leaves the opportunity for Riot to sell just the Hytale IP, because from everything we've heard, it sounds like they were trying to find investors for Hypixel Studios. And from everything we've heard about Hypixel Studios, it seems they weren't working too well. So it is possible that now that the studios have been shut down, Riot could sell just the Hytale IP, so that would include like the lore, probably a lot of the concept art, maybe the legacy and new engines, although as somebody who has tried coding, taking over code that you know nothing about is completely impossible. So it seems like there is actually a fairly decent chance of some sort of Hytale project launching eventually, but this could all just be huge cope. I don't really know. In other exciting news, the Vintage Story dev, Tyron, who is, if you didn't know, a former Hytale dev from around like 2018, I believe, said on his blog that if you are one of the former developers or a highly passionate Hytale fan with extensive modding skills, to write to them at jobs@vintagestory.at, and perhaps they would put together a small sub-project within the team to bring out an additional game mode for Vintage Story that can at least in part deliver on the vision of what Hytale set out to become. He would picture this as a mostly independent work group developing a new playstyle, or an external team that uses our extensive modding API with funding from us. So, this is very exciting. We've got a Hytale dev offering other Hytale devs to not finish Hytale, because it would be a totally different IP, we wouldn't have Quebecs or anything, but similar to Hytale and with some insider knowledge about how Hytale would work. Although, now that I say that, that might run into some legal troubles from Riot if it's too close to pre-existing systems within the game. But if what we've been led to believe is accurate, there were not many pre-existing systems in the game, so that doesn't really matter. So yeah, I'll be keeping my eye out on the Vintage Story blog for any news about that project, on Hypixel Simon's Twitter for any news regarding his acquisition, and just on the general space in case some other company decides to acquire the Hytale IP. Until next time, or if no news comes out, until forever, bye bye, see you later.